You've been listening to WKRNG, One Ring to Rock Them All. Now, we just finished a free ride with Iron Maiden and Metallica, and coming at the top of the hour, Angus Young will take us down the highway to hell after Led Zeppelin shows us the stairway to heaven. But first, let's ask the question that's been on Larry Norman's mind the whole time. Why should the devil have all the good music? Pardon the little bit of silliness in the opening, but I figured I'd lighten things up after last week's heavy topic. And yes, today we are talking about Christian censorship in relation to music and how it's, both the causes and the effects of such. And in fact, at least in King James only denominations, if they do focus on media censorship, they will lean harder on music than anything else, because there is a verse in Ezekiel, it will be cited below in the description, where it alludes that before Satan fell, he was in charge of the music in heaven. So obviously, if he knows a thing about music, then he can get his roots into the music and use it to corrupt your poor souls and minds and such. But honestly, for years there have been, and decades, there have been connections between, music and the devil. Even back in the heyday of classical music, there was a famous virtuoso named Paganini, who was rumored to have sold his soul to the devil for his skill with the violin. And everyone knows the story about how Robert Johnson supposedly sold his soul to the devil at the crossroads to be able to, to get his skill at playing the guitar. And especially those who grew up in the 70s, or those who grew up in strict Christian households, because even after the wider world forgets various satanic panics, it lingers on in fundamentalist culture. The whole backmasking scenario of the 70s and the whole Marilyn Manson hearings in the 80s. And it's the same song, second verse. If you want to hear me ranting about censorship at large, I'll go ahead and point you to the first video on my channel. Odds are you've probably seen it, since it's the one with the most views as of yet. But the thing is specifically about music. And see, not only is there the, quote-unquote satanic association, there's the whole talk about how music is filthier nowadays, and it always seems to be filthier nowadays than it was before. And the thing is, music, like all art, touches on the human condition. Heck, there's even a book in the Bible that's basically soft and not so softcore pornography. If you haven't read the Song of Solomon, then you don't know what I'm talking about. If you have read the Song of Solomon, then odds are you probably went through puberty in a Christian household. But not only that, but music can key into your emotions. Like, a lot more, it seems to key into your emotions a lot more efficiently than any other art does. That's why, if you set a scene to a certain score, it sets the tone for the score. Like, for instance, the meme where they would put the Avengers theme to different scenes from different movies and make the movies, the scenes seem a lot more epic. Or, for instance, Peter and the Wolf. It tells a whole story just through instrumentals. And that, and if you haven't listened to Peter and the Wolf, go listen to Peter and the Wolf, preferably after you finish watching this video. And that seems to be part of the issue is the black and white thinking of fundamentalist evangelicals in particular, and any other fundamentalist sects, is, it's stirring things in me, and it's obviously not from God because it's not about God, so it must be from the world and the devil because the devil is the prince of this world. And it's bullshit. It's complete and utter bullcrap. Even assuming the whole it stirs baser emotions. What's wrong about human nature? Really? But, and so along with, quote unquote questionable lyrics, quote unquote, talking about the debauchery lifestyle of the rock star. Even back in the days of, classical music, in the days of Bach and Beethoven, there was a pianist by the name of Franz Liszt who had screaming women throw their panties at him while he was playing in concert. So it's not exactly a new phenomenon. And I don't see any pastors railing against classical music, But, so we've covered lyrics, we've covered lifestyle, we've covered, the quote-unquote connections with the devil. Both, touched on both scriptural and folkloric. And another issue, especially when you go into genres like metal, is what I like to call the aesthetics of evil, which is actually going to be the topic for next week, along with Christian horror. So that's something to look forward to. But basically, the aesthetics of evil is it looks dark. It looks scary. It touches into, pagan or demonic theming. Like your Metallicas and your Iron Maiden. Basically any rock album cover that you can think of. And there you go. Now, and once again, I will touch more on it next week. I was just given, a brief overview of that topic as it pertains to this discussion. Now, we've covered, some of what causes this sense of censorship, specifically regarding music, and why. Now we'll move on to why it's harmful. Not really harmful to the person, because all that's been covered, why censorship in general is bad. Once again, back to the first video. But it's bad for the genre of Christian music itself. Because when you limit your exposure to outside inspiration, the genre gets stale and it gets stagnant. And and even while I was still in my heavily indoctrinated phase, I stopped listening to newer Christian music because it all started sounding the same. It all started like it was all a rehash of, old hymns, or taking an old classic rock song or a modern popish sounding song, and instead of making it about dating, make it about Jesus. It's the kind of music where you hear Okay, I'm gonna be honest. I was semi-planning a bit where I was gonna cram in as many, names of Christian bands into one description as possible, just like sneakily, but my brain is currently too frazzled to try and go through it. But it's it's basically songs that, if they aren't already worship songs, they're songs that can be picked up by the church youth group band and turned into a worship song. I swear to a God I don't no longer believe in, if I have to hear Rich Mullins one more time, I will not be in a happy place. But, and that's the thing, is just when you get such a narrow focus on to what you can and cannot do, you very much get very samey sounding music. And there's it's no surprise that, from what I've seen, the Christian music scene today is either holdouts from American Idol, bumped up church youth groups, church youth bands, or holdovers from the 90s. And really, even, it's just, there's so much more that you can say with music. Why limit yourself? And why they limit themselves is it's another tool to get people jacked into the Jesus juice. And I'm sick of it. But, next week we're going to touch on the aesthetics of evil and Christian horror, and it's going to launch into a whole month of literal literature themed, culminating in a video on The Handmaid's Tale for Banned Book Week. So hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, comment, go ahead, do all the YouTube things. And remember, indoctrination is a hell of a drug.